The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Thursday. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in the world of autism, and we're going to talk about a lot of it a little bit later on in the show, but a lot of really encouraging news today. After a week of, sort of the best of times, worst of times, lost a couple of kids this last week, unfortunately, children who eloped and drowned. And of course, we hate news like that. But, the flip side of the coin is that some good things are happening, and we're going to focus on those today. We will talk about those later because we have a couple of guests coming in this first hour. So I want to start out by telling you that we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism, that 360-degree perspective that we're talking about, looking at both the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, and the indifferent, right? And hitting on topics that we hope are important to you, whether you're a parent, teacher, practitioner working with a child on the autism spectrum, or you yourself are on the autism spectrum. We know that information is important, right? They always say knowledge is power. So we're trying to empower you with information and with links to things. I can't even tell you how many times in the last week I've had the opportunity to talk to, my gosh, as I'm just thinking back over it, every possible configuration in this spectrum, people who just got their child diagnosed, and people whose children have recovered, or that their children were diagnosed with autism 20 years ago, and kind of everything in between. And we all share one common bond because our kids are different and our circumstances are different, but the common bond that we share is that we want to do the most that we can to help the individuals in our life, right? And that comes down to getting the right information and figuring out, oh, I didn't know about this resource, and oh, I need to find out about that. And, so we want to be a hub of information for you. And if there's something that we have not covered, sometimes it takes us a while to cover it because we have to find the right person, but feel free to write in and tell us what you want us to cover, the topics that you want to do, and we'll get to them eventually. But it really is important for you to participate in this very interactive show. Tell us your thoughts, your concerns, your feelings, your frustrations, your hopes, your dreams, all of that, and tell us, here's what I'm having trouble with. Here is where I am in the world. That's really essential information for us. Where do I go? Where do I go to get this help? And we're going to talk more about this throughout the show because I had to ask for some help this morning. I had to, consult one of my party of people that surround me and say, help me. How did you get through this? I don't know what to do about this. And I'm just reminded of how essential it is to have people you can go to. I want to be one of your people to help you and say, oh, you know who the person to talk to about is this person. So there are lots of ways to interact with us. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can interact with us here. And I'm going to remind you that the only place you can watch us live is at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you see a desktop and there's a white box. It used to be that was only active when the show was live, and we are live approximately 10 hours a week. But now we're leaving that box open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that if you are halfway around the world and you're watching at a different time than when we're live, and you tune in, and the show is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it just isn't live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That would be scary. But you can tune in if you see something and you want to write a question, you can, and we'll address it at the next available live show. That's our deal with you. But there are other ways of getting a hold of us too, and I want to remind you that all the ways of getting a hold of us, all the ways of asking for information or help, it's all free. We're not asking for anybody's credit card. You're not going to get charged in 14 days. And we don't even know what your name is or what your address is. Nobody's looking to put you on a mailing list. We just want to support. And isn't that a lovely thing? That's the way it should be, right? I always remind you at the top of the show, I'm not an expert in autism. Gosh, some days I wish I were. Most days I wish I were, but that's just not my reality. I'm like a lot of you, trying to learn everything that I can because I'm a parent. My child was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He is now about to be 10 in less than 2 weeks now, and he is doing remarkably well. And I attribute that to the fact that we met the right people along the way, parents who said to us, here's what you need to know, so that we got the right therapy. We got really fabulous quality therapy here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. If it seems like I'm a huge fan of theirs, that's why, because they gave me back my child. And that's no small thing. Don't get me all emotional. It's only Thursday. We saved that for Fridays. But it really is essential, and it's a message that I like to get out there, that all of our kids deserve the very best of treatment. We know that ABA is effective at treating all of our kids, no matter where they are on the spectrum. We know that it's hard to get hooked up with that therapy because it can be very expensive. It's very intensive. It takes a lot of hours. You can't do it watered down and expect the same results. So it's a time investment. It's a money investment, and no one can afford it. So if you're sitting there and going, but Shannon, how on earth does anybody pay for that? They don't. They get funding sources, and that's one of the big things that we talk about here, is how do you make that happen? And there are ways, and I have seen people of all walks of life in all areas of the world figure it out. You got to be clever and have some help and support. I want to be that help and support to you, and there are other people who want to be that help and support to you, but there are ways to do that. And ABA, I really think of it as the cornerstone. You know, it's the linchpin. All of our kids need ABA. I'm just not going to mamby-pamby about that anymore. All of our kids need ABA. If you call me and say, I have an 18-year-old. I'm going to tell you, you need to get some ABA on board. If you've got issues, you need to get some ABA on board. If you call me and tell me you've got an 18-month-old, I'm going to tell you, you need to get ABA on board. If you tell me your child is extremely high functioning and they won scholarships to Yale, but they're having social skills issues, I'm going to say, get some ABA. If you call me and tell me that you have an 8-year-old who is not speaking and is not toileted, I'm going to tell you, get some ABA on board, right? So no matter where no matter where you are on the spectrum, no matter where your child is on the spectrum, get some ABA on board. Is ABA the only thing you're going to do? No. There's so many other things you can do, but then it gets much more child-specific, right? Even the ABA is child-specific, but we know it's effective for all of our kids because guess what? It's effective for everyone. If you had a child who was an Olympic athlete and you just wanted them to get to the next level, I would be telling you, use the principles of ABA to get that child to the next level. So ABA across the board, but there are other things that we can do, and so we talk about those things as well. But again, it gets into much more child-specific when we get to that point. All right. I digress. We like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it within the context of our lives. We give you an actual definition so that we can make fun of all the crazy words that they put in actual definitions for ABA terms, and then we give you a working definition, which is hopefully more user-friendly. So today, our jargon term is prosody, and this is a term that, if you were an English major in college, you may have heard this term, right? It's going to mean something slightly different in terms of autism. So let's take a look at our actual definition, which is the use of intonation and vocal stress to convey information about the structure and meaning of an utterance. And that's not a bad definition as things go, right? We can kind of get a feel for what that is. Our working definition is the use of pitch, loudness, tempo, and rhythm in speech so the listener can understand what is being said. So you will hear some kids on the autism spectrum that they talk in a complete monotone. That is so exciting. I am thrilled about that, right? And then, I don't know about you, if you've ever met somebody who talks like that, who's an adult, and you go, Are you being sarcastic? I can't quite. Are you joking? Are you making fun of me? I don't know what's going on here, right? It can affect the meaning and the understanding. It affects your ability to communicate. Sometimes people use this to great comic effect, but when it's your kid trying to make friends with another kid or apply for a job, not so funny, right? And imagine there's so it's not just the pitch, but it's also the level of loudness. I recently had some ear stuff go on, and so I'm just here in the studio yelling all the time, right? And it gets annoying sometimes to some people. I always used to say, why is Donald Trump yelling? Every time he was doing something, he'd always be yelling, and I've turned into, without the money, I've turned into Donald Trump. I'm now yelling every time we're in the studio. We have a guest on via phone or Skype, and Emily has to say to me, you don't have to yell. And I go, right, I don't have to yell. But some of our kids do this. My son tends to not speak loud enough, that he's a mutterer, that he'll say something and then I'm deaf. So what? And then he's frustrated and he says, forget it. It affects the ability to communicate. You can't do that. Sometimes it's tempo. Oh my goodness. Have you been with the person who talks like this? Or I'm sure, I get told sometimes, you need to slow down, girl. What did you just say? You put a bunch of words together and it was too fast. It affects your ability to communicate. And of course, rhythm, how fast do you speak? And do you have a pattern that you say 3 things and then you say 3 more? It all affects our ability to communicate. So we want the listener, if you've got a child who's expressive and the language is going that way, we want to make it as easily receptive as possible. So prosody is when we work on these things. All children on the autism spectrum do not have prosody issues, but a lot of them do. And it's important to work on them. It's an area that I think a lot of times gets undervalued and under-discussed. But there are great lessons for working on prosody. This is something you can work on with a speech and language pathologist, and you can ask them to work on it. But there are also things that you can do in terms of your ABA program. Ask your ABA provider to work on this as well. Prosody, really important thing. We've talked about this with Jack Riley a little bit from the A Word, that he's at a point where he's speaking, and we need to make sure that he gets the reinforcement, the benefit of speaking, so that he'll speak much more. But at the place where we're watching in the series, his articulation isn't up to speed. So he's uttering, right? But we're not always understanding, and that leads to frustration. We have to minimize that as quickly as possible. Same thing with prosody. Here's a kid who's worked and worked and worked to be able to express themselves, but their meaning is mistaken because we haven't worked enough on the prosody issues. So think about it. Does somebody in your life have these kinds of issues? And it's not just people on the spectrum by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, we always have a question of the day. Our question today, and earlier this week, we were asking questions of you. What are your biggest social issues that you need to work on? What are your biggest social strengths that you rely on? And we were asking it specifically about you, not about your child. Today, it's pretty open. You or your child, what's been the biggest challenge socially? Now, you can talk about this in terms of yourself, or you can talk about this in terms of your child. And this is right in the area where we're at right now, because my son has made so many gains and is doing so well. But I gotta say that socially is the part that we really I'm seeing that this summer, that's really gotta be the focus. It's gotta be the massive play date, because for him to socially interact with peers, my son is not completely up to speed with the way kids in this current little slice of time behave and react, and what's cool and what's not, and how you're supposed to act aloof. And I do think that part of the problem is that I am still in a bit of denial. I really don't want to help him to be more aloof. I'd like to be able to change all of the other children on the face of the planet, which we know how well that would work, or I want to fast forward through this time and just kind of skim over it and not really do the work. And neither one of those is going to work. And I'm starting to come out of the denial and pull my head out of the sand and say, I have to address this because it is affecting his everyday. And I really have not been targeting because it just kind of chaps my hide a little bit. Why should we teach being aloof? I don't really know what the answer is, but I know that I want my child to feel like he can not be held back. And he's feeling that way right now because he doesn't understand what the rules are. So I have to suck it up and teach him how to behave like he doesn't care. We've started this a little bit. I will say that Alex Plank, who we have on most Mondays, he's been away the last couple of weeks because he is consulting on that TV show, The Bridge, on the FX network that's going to start in just a few weeks. Fascinating show. And so Alex hasn't been here, but Alex on wrongplanet.net has a bullying video where he talks to an expert about what kinds of things a kid can do if kids are saying nasty things to them and acting like, whatever, that they just, so that it doesn't give good attention, but it's dismissive and it's like, whatever. And we literally have been working on that thing with my son, trying to help him to be able to do it on his own because he says, whatever. And it's not the same thing, right? I've been trying to teach him how to act aloof, like, that doesn't matter. And it's not his own yet. It looks like mom put it on him. So, as an actor in a role, he's still not to dress rehearsal. We're in blocking rehearsals. But it's, working on the social thing. So I'll love to hear from you guys. What's your biggest challenge socially? We always have a topic of the week, and I'm sure that you've guessed by now that our topic this week is social skills. And I specifically made that the topic this week because we're moving into summer, and summer is a time when we can target social skills and have more potential for opportunities than a lot of times throughout the year. So, and it sets us up for success for our kids starting the new school year. So we're talking about social skills this week, and we'll continue to talk about that. We've got some really exciting things going on the show today. We've got good stuff with Ashley. Ashley Colis is going to be with us in just a couple of minutes. Really excited to see what she's brought in for us this week. And then a little bit, just slightly after Ashley's done, Brian Turtle from Endless Games, we talked about this earlier in the week, is going to be on with us via Skype. This is a great game, this Korner'd game, but they have a lot more games. And we're going to talk with Brian about why these are great for kids with autism and how they come up with these great ideas. I played this with my husband and my son. It's a little addictive, I have to tell you. It was very exciting. So we're going to talk about that and maybe even do a little demo of the game to show you, but very exciting. And then a little bit later on today, we have a school tip, and you guys have been writing in a lot of questions about skills. So we're going to talk a little bit about skills, about all the different parts of skills and all the different ways you might use it to make yourself more effective in a school setting, whether you're the teacher or the parent, or if you are an individual who's on the spectrum and wants to be more effective in school. So we're going to do that a little bit later in the second hour. All of that and more. We're going to take a break and be joined by Ashley Colis, so stick with us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman with Taka. My guest here.
I am Jennifer Lucero with Taka.
Taka Mom's here in the house. Jeff saw on a TV commercial, they were making calzones, and he looked at me and goes, Mom, please make me that. Wait a minute, calzone, you can't have calzone. He goes, well, you make me pizza. Why don't we call it a pizzone? So we're going to do this ode to Jeff, pizzone. So I'm going to have Jen come on in.
All right.
You're in charge.
Ready.
We're going to add a little grapeseed oil, garlic, cut up chicken, finely cut up onion, and we're going to throw a little bit of basil. So we're going to just take about 5 minutes or so, saute up the chicken and all of the onions together. While Jen is slaving away at the stove, I'm going to make the pizza crust. A lot of gluten-free choices that you have out there for pizza crust. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the dry. Again, I'm using eggs. There are a lot of egg replacers on the Taka website. We have about a dozen different ways to replace eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and add my shortening. Calls for a little extra salt, which I'm going to put in here. And also add a little pepper. And we also have herbs de Provence that gives the crust a nice Italian flavor. Can't forget the apple cider vinegar, organic stuff ready to go. Yes, I have all my ingredients. We're ready to rock with this mixer. And don't be afraid of dough. Dough doesn't bite. So here's what we'll be working with to make the puzzone. I'm ready to go. Let's get this party started. So what we're going to do next is roll out the dough. I like to be rolling in the dough, but we're going to roll out the dough instead. So let's go ahead and get started here with that. So again, you see me using the parchment paper all the time. Love this stuff. It's basically unbleached, ready to go. It's just going to make life a lot easier on your rolling pin. You don't need to coat it or anything, which is a lot easier. But I swear I should buy that by the gross ton. So the puzzones, this basically makes 2 big puzzones. I'm going to take half of the dough and roll it out. Half of the other dough will be for the other puzzone that we're going to make in just a little bit. So you want to do, you're not making a pie crust. You're kind of making a long oval shape. So we're going to try to make a shape where I'm going to basically roll this over with all the yummy fillings. And so any combination or variation thereof. This sauce, just real simple, is organic crushed tomatoes. I've added a little bit of salt and pepper and herbs de Provence in that as well, which I love. I like extra fresh basil. That's always yummy to have on your puzzone. And thank you, this turned out fantastic. So we're just basically building it the way that we want to eat it. Of course, my favorite rice-free, organic, dairy-free, soy-free cheese. It's going to pop out the sides.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of popping out the sides. So that's the beauty of the parchment paper. Once you're done, you just flip it over and peel it back. So I'm just taking a fork now and going around the edges. It looks so pretty.
Looks really nice.
So for 400 degrees, we're going to go for about 25 minutes. You want it golden brown. And because we cooked everything pretty much already, you're not worried about not having everything fully cooked. So look how cute those look.
Looks great.
Like those 4 happy people right there. This weighs a ton. So let's go to the magic oven. Pull out our finished product. And voila!
Good.
Oh my gosh,
looks
this
beautiful.
is so yummy. There's nothing better than a little Jeff Ackerman puzzone.
Yeah.
And this is going to be nuclear hot, but we'll go ahead and cut it open so you can. Oh my gosh, this is going to taste so good
That
later
looks
on for
great.
your kids.
Yum.
Feedback, keep it coming. Thank you for helping, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. Come back to Autism Live. We'll keep doing allergy-friendly cooking classes. If you have any suggestions or things that you would like to see us make, bring it on. You can reach us at autismlive@gmail.com or Facebook.
Love the Facebook.
I know, too much for me. Facebook, so facebook.com/autismlive, or thousands of taco recipes ready to go. Basically go to Takanow, TACANOW.org, and we'll see you next time.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It is time for Great Stuff with Ashley. We welcome Ashley Colis to the studio with us. Hi.
Thank you.
So nice to have you here. You're looking very lovely in your purple.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we know that you are a bride-to-be.
Yes,
It's a
I
very
am.
exciting time in your life. And we have disclosed recently on the show that you are marrying one of our favorite people on the face of the planet. So
am.
it's 2 of our favorite people getting married. That's always a lovely thing. And it will be even more lovely when you have children, because when 2 of your favorite people get married and have children, it's just the most luscious thing. We're not rushing you.
We're not
There's no
rushing.
pressure. You're very young. You can wait as long as you want. But tell them who you're marrying.
I'm marrying Peter Farrig.
Yes.
Yes.
The very first therapist that ever came to our door, we call him the Autism Whisperer.
He's pretty amazing.
Adore him, and so thrilled that he found you because we adore you. So that's
Thank
a luscious
you.
thing. And my child adores you both.
We love him so much. It's kind of hard not to love him, so he's did a really good job. He's a really awesome kid.
We didn't do it by ourselves because we had a lot of people like Peter. We didn't get the benefit of having you as a therapist, but we should say that you have worked extensively with children around the world.
Yes.
And that are on the autism spectrum. And you are also a superlative shopper.
I am a great shopper.
And you have great taste.
Thank you.
And so it just makes great sense that we have Ashley come in when we can get her once a week to come in and do great stuff, because you tell us how to put great shopping and great taste together with having kids on the spectrum. So what do we buy?
Right.
Because we want our dollars to go as far as they possibly can. We've all had the experience of wasting money on a toy that the child didn't play with, didn't help. And I early on I said, let's get toys and things that are going to help with the autism instead of just spending money on toys. And so you keep that. And we told you that this week we were working on social skills.
Right.
So you have something fabulous for us.
I do. I had worked on a project here with some of the apps that we were working on developing, and part of that required us to research what's going on and what's coming out in the app market right now. And there's an app that's been around for a little while, and it's called Social Express.
Yes.
There are a couple reasons why I love it. One is the graphics are really cool.
Okay.
It's like it's animated, but it's like 3D or some kind of computer-generated animation.
Okay.
That makes it very cool to see. It looks very high quality. And it presents a lot of different social situations and social problem solving and inferences and thinking and knowing and all these kind of higher level cognition type skills or cognitive skills that we are trying to work on with some of our kids that feed into their success socially.
Okay. Now, I have seen Social Express on anytime I look and go, what are the top 25 apps for autism, or what are the top 10 or whatever, it's on all of them. So I think everybody concurs that this is a great app, but I don't have it. And I guess it's because I've never been able to ask somebody, what age range is this appropriate for?
We try not to always assign the age range because we have kids that are 5 that are ready to use this app.
Okay.
And there are kids who are 11 and they might not be able
so maybe
to
the
do
right
all
question,
of the activities.
Maybe the right question is, what skill level does this address?
I think this would be for a child that's, entering the social, like mid-level social skills, and then working on some cognition skills as well.
Okay. Now, Emily has a clip of the game being played to show, so we're going to take a look at that, and then we'll talk about it when we come back. Take a look. This is the Social Express.
Hey, Emma, where should we go today? I think we should go into town. That's a great idea. Hi, Sam.
What should Zach do? Use the DPS to select a coping strategy so he can calm down. What should Katie do?
Whoops.
That didn't make Emma feel better. Let's rewind this scene and try another solution. Yes, that's better.
So that was the Social Express. Very cute. Very well done. I mean, I could see kids being really, caught up in what's happening because it's, as you said, it's so visually stimulating.
It's almost like a movie. I get caught up watching it and I'm like, what's going to happen?
Yeah, we got very quiet sitting here watching because like, very fascinating. I love it. And you mentioned while we were watching it, they give choices.
They do. They present choices. It's not always easy to think, okay, in this situation, I should do this.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's such a wide variety that it's difficult in a game to capture all the possible correct answers. So we're presenting, maybe two in these situations. And they'll show one of them that's wrong and what will happen, and one of them that's correct, which is really good because we can see that contrast.
Yeah, and the consequences of it too.
Exactly.
And be able to rewind and go back. I really like that. That's very clever.
So that's we're using observational type learning instead of having to experience that themselves and then learn from it. It's learning by observing.
Very, very clever. And so you mentioned while we were watching that it's available in different platforms.
It is. So you can there's a digital download available for your PC if you would like to use that. And then I do believe that there's an Android version and an iTunes or Apple version.
And we look to see on iTunes, and it's in the $30 range for iTunes. So it's not one of those 99-cent apps, but it's a big game.
You're getting a lot of other supplemental materials as well, as you could see. So we have like worksheets that you could see the one that was about Zach, I believe his name was, and it had listing things that were his preferences, and that's something important to know about our friends, and lots of different activities that you can work on, like emotions. That's something that we saw.
So again, it's not one of those games that you're going to get for 99 cents, but it's also not a game that they're going to get to the end of in 2 days of playing on it.
It's much more comprehensive in terms of what skills it touches on.
Yeah.
And there are some parts that are more fun, and there are some parts that are less fun, but I think that it's really cool that all those things are offered to you as a parent or a teacher.
Absolutely. And when you stop and consider, because I always like to weigh things compared to other things, for $30 and the amount of information that you get there, if you go to buy any game for the Nintendo, you're at much more than $30.
Right.
So, and this is something that's of great benefit to your child. We're all wanting to work on social skills, so Social Express, great thing. Thank you so much. Because I certainly had heard about this before, but I love it now.
They might still have a free version. So if you check it out in the App Store, you might be able to find that. They used to have one. So.
Okay. And I'm always a big fan of that, too. If you can get the trial first to check and make sure. A lot of the apps that we've ended up buying, we did the trial first and saw, okay, this is something that's really going to work for us. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good extended weekend.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Brian Turtle. Talk about games. Brian Turtle from Endless Games is going to be with us, and we're going to be talking about this game in particular, Korner'd, which I'm going to share with Ashley before she goes, that we played at our house. Very, very fun, but it's not the only game that they have that's really good for kids on the spectrum. Endless Games. Brian Turtle will be with us, and love this, made in America. I always, like to get things that are made locally. So stick with us. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are here at the Gluten Free Expo. We're really excited about it. Can't wait to give you a look at all the tasty things there are to try. We are here at the Breads from Anna booth. You have been helping my family for a long time. So first of all, tell us a little bit about how this came to be.
Okay, well, I was diagnosed at age 16 with type 1 diabetes, and then in my 30s I got celiac disease, and a lot of the products that existed at that point just weren't working for me. So I made my first mix, which was gluten, soy, rice, and nut-free. And then my sister was diagnosed with celiac, and she has Hashimoto's, so she can't digest lactose, and she was allergic to corn. So I made a mix for her, and I had these 2 little mixes on my website, and then the autism community started reaching out to me for a yeast-free mix. And then my nephew was diagnosed with autism. So we have stuck to really trying to make our products as free as possible of the top 8 allergens. We're free of so many of those trigger foods that they work well for these kids. And the bean flours we use are pre-soaked, so they're easier to digest.
And it tastes good. That's the most important thing. It tastes really good.
And I truly believe there's healing that happens from the pleasure that you get from eating, and I want people to feel that they're not making a sacrifice by having to be on a special diet.
Where can people get them?
There is a store locator on our website, so you can check that out. And we encourage people to ask stores to bring it in if they have a store they like to shop at that we're not in.
We are here right now at the Bob's Red Mill Natural Foods booth. You know, you've heard me talk about them on the show before. I love them.
The two hot items are coconut flour and almond flour. They're just rocking because they please a lot of audiences. They've got the gluten-free. They please the paleo. They're not grain, so they can please a lot of audiences. And as far as the mixes, you know, we're always the pizza crust, the cornbread, and then our oats are still just right up there. So, and we have over 100 products now that are certified gluten-free. So we're trying to please all audiences with that.
We are here at one of the most popular booths, the Udi's booth. Tell us some of the things that might be good for a GFCF diet.
Perfect. So all of our products, with the exception of the cookies and the brownie bites, are milk-free, casein-free, and they're made in separate, dedicated facilities. So basically anything here other than cookies and brownie bites is good. For kids, the granola, because it's chocolate. And then we have things like double vanilla muffins that can double as cupcakes. And if you can do like a sugar-free frosting, milk-free frosting, then it's even better.
We are here with the author of Gluten is My and a very incendiary title.
Well, when I was diagnosed with celiac 2.5 years ago, my initial reaction was, "What? Are you serious that I can no longer eat a major food group?" It blew my mind, and everywhere I looked, I found inspirational, yay, yay, and I was like, this will not do. And I instantly started my blog, Gluten is My out of total craziness, and it developed into a book.
The subtitle of it is Rants, Recipes, and Ridiculousness for the Gluten-Free. So a little bit of everything then, stories and recipes.
Yes, it's personal stories. It's a guide on how to get through this time in your life. It's also, there's information if your child is diagnosed, there's travel information, and there's also a chapter on the future of gluten-free and what it means for all of us that are suffering through a lack of donuts.
We are here at the Enjoy Life booth. Tell us about what Plentals are. We just tried it, and it rocked our world.
Well, Plentals are a lentil-based snack, and the great thing about Plentals is 3 of the 4 flavors are dairy-free. So there's no gluten, there's no casein. All of our products are gluten-free and free of the 8 common allergens, which means they're free of egg, dairy, wheat, soy, peanut, tree nut, fish, and shellfish.
But it's not the only product that you guys have. You have a wide range of products that you guys carry, right?
That's right. We make 38 different products. Again, everything that we make is certified gluten-free as well as free of the 8 common allergens. So the great thing about Enjoy Life is when you see the Enjoy Life red logo on any package, you know it's safe, and you know it's safe for everybody. And a lot of people ask us, well, how do you make it taste so good? Because if it doesn't taste great, no one cares. And so we like to tell them it's a little bit of magic, it's a whole lot of love that we're able to do this and replicate all these different flavors. So for instance, we have a brand new line of decadent bars, which are s'mores, cinnamon bun, cherry cobbler, and chocolate sun butter. And again, all free of the 8 common allergens. The other thing with all of our products, they're all verified non-GMO. So we have the most gluten-free products that are verified non-GMO by the Non-GMO Project.
For more information about a healthy, tasty, gluten-free diet, make sure to watch our cooking segment, What's Left, co-sponsored by Taka. Welcome back to Autism Live. As promised, we're going to be joined right now via Skype with Brian Turtle from Endless Games. I've been showing you all week long this fabulous game that we've been playing in my house, Korner'd. So, Brian, are you there?
I'm here.
So great to have you here. This is a fabulous game, and I wished I'd brought it, but I had a flyer that came with it that featured a bunch more games that we're going to talk about in a second. But you guys are doing some clever stuff over there at Endless Games. Fabulous games that are good for everyone, but in particular, some of have a special interest for kids who are on the spectrum. Tell us about Korner'd and why is this particularly good for kids on the spectrum?
Yeah, it was one of those kind of just developments that came out of taking this game home when it was really still in its prototype form, playing it with my own kids, and then playing it with my nieces. I played the game, and just to kind of give you an idea, Korner'd is basically, it's a color pattern recognition game. You've got the game board, and you have these tiles, and you're trying to place the tile on the board where the four corners match up with the colors. And really the hook of the game is that there's only going to be one spot where this tile and where all 36 tiles can be played on the board. So it's deceivingly difficult. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle.
It is.
Trying to find where the pieces go. So in any case, it was a little bit too difficult for my own girls. They're ages 3 and 6. But my nieces, it seemed to be right in their age range. And my 11-year-old niece, Caitlin, is on the autism spectrum. And she's not normally the first person to jump up and want to play a board game. She'd rather do some things occasionally, that are more solitary or things that may not have that anxiety level of a winner and a loser and the competition of a board game.
Right.
But we played this, and it was amazing, the personality and the confidence and everything that it brought out of my niece Caitlin. And I think, actually, now having played it over and over again, I've come to realize that this game, Korner'd, it plays to the strengths of a child on the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
It's very right side of the brain driven. The pattern recognition, the colors, just the general format of the game. It's almost comforting, and it doesn't have that anxious buildup. It actually makes my niece, for one, feel very self-confident.
Yeah.
She became very outspoken when we played it. And it really just brought forth a great side of her personality that I don't get to see enough of.
Love it. Well, we played this in my house, and I have the board out and open here. First of all, it's good quality game, too. I love the fact that, and I'm making a mess here in the studio, I love the fact that it folds up, so it's not taking up a whole lot of space, but it's a well-made game, and I appreciate that as a parent. And as Brian was just saying, you have, we did it where we dealt out 5 cards to each person, and that it was open season, nobody got to take a turn, but you tried to be the first person to get all of your 5 tiles on the board. And my husband and my son and I were playing this, and we no sooner said go, I swear it seemed like we blinked, and my son said done, and he lifted up his hands, and my son's about to be 10, and my husband had not yet put a single tile on the board. And so we had a good laugh about that. And then we said, well, we'll just play one more round. And we helped my husband to figure out, because he didn't quite, he understood the game, but he was having a hard time figuring out how to play to his strengths to do it. And it was wonderful hearing my son explain, this is the shortcut, Dad. This is how you're going to be able to solve it. And having my husband figure that out. And then we just kept playing. We couldn't put it down. It was a little addictive, very fun. It was a very easy cleanup. Gotta say, I love this game. Very, very smart game. So
we appreciate the compliments there. One thing, just to echo your point there, of kind of that addictive element. We certainly strive to create games that you can play within a minute or two of opening the box, so we don't want to bore you with lengthy instructions. And we love it when you play it and you want to get right back into it and play another round and play it again and again and again. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. So tell me a little bit about Endless Games and how that came to be, and what some of the other games that you guys feature.
Sure. Strangely enough, the company Endless Games was formed in 1996. I was a part of it. The first game we did as a company was called The 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. And that was a game that myself and 2 of my college fraternity brothers, Mike Ginelli and Craig Fass, developed in college, in Albright College, Reading, Pennsylvania. And that was kind of a party game. And from there, we got into doing some TV game shows. We did the Family Feud. We still do the Family Feud. We do Password. For a while there, we did games like The Price is Right and the Newlywed Game. And then we got into kind of bringing the content out from our own sort of brain cells there. So we got away from doing the TV game show things there after a few years of doing those. And we put out probably our best-selling game to date in 2010, and that's a game called Name 5. And Name 5 was all about, can you name 5 breakfast cereal mascots, or can you name 5 foods that are blue, or name 5 songs by the Beatles, or anything that you can come up with 5 of. And it's that was a great party game that didn't quite have the same pigeonholedness, if there's such a word, as the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. You didn't have to be an expert in Kevin Bacon. It was name 5 of anything, whether it was movies, TV shows, foods, what have you. And once we did that, we really started to look internally at unlicensed concepts or stuff that was coming out of just everyday life. And we put out some other party games, one called Flippin' Out. We've got a great new one this year. It's called Oddly Obvious. I would encourage folks to check us out on Facebook, Endless Games on Facebook, and also at endlessgames.com. They can see everything we're doing. But then Korner'd came in from an inventor last summer, and it just sort of had that, what we look for in a game, that, quick, easy to learn how to play, and like we just said, that sort of addictive element. And it's been wonderful, and it's really been great to kind of ride this sort of roller coaster that started with a sort of a college party game. And as I became more of a family man, our product line sort of mirrored that a little bit. We did a great game that my own 2 daughters sort of consulted on, a game called the Cupcake Race, where you go around a board and build little cupcakes and things like that. And now to be able to share Korner'd with my niece, who we actually show on the back of the box.
Yes.
My niece Caitlin, right here. It's just been a fun ride, and it's great to be in an industry. I feel that board games are really one of the last pure sort of areas where human beings can connect.
Yeah.
And
well, it's a very social thing, and it's funny that you bring up the genesis of the company was party games. Games are a very social thing, and we teach our children a lot of social lessons when we play games. And I know that there are a lot of apps and things and getting into digital games, but we still, it's an important part of any ABA program that kids play board games, because you have opportunities to do taking turns and practicing telling white lies during some games, being able to process things really quickly. Board games are great for kids on the autism spectrum. I'm making a mess in the studio. But I think it's great that your games, the running theme through a lot of them that I hear is that they're great for social skills.
Absolutely. And it doesn't, when I say party game, it doesn't mean that it has to be a wild hang from the chandelier type of Animal House type of a scenario. But, you get the family and friends around the table. And I've always found that the best games are the ones where you sort of deviate off the path of the game board, and it leads to anecdotal stuff. It's name 5 songs by Pearl Jam, and then it turns into, do you remember when we first heard this song together? Or, it kind of inspires conversation, whether it's about your day or just about life in general.
Brian, do you guys have a kids version of Name 5?
No, it's funny you bring that up. It's something that I have been sort of leaning on my partners about doing, just because I know how my own daughters like to do it, and we can only do my 6-year-old and 3-year-old can do things like name 5 Disney princesses and name 5 things from Nickelodeon, but the content right now, it doesn't cater specifically to their age group, and I think that that's something that we're looking to do in the future. But for now, we've got the main name 5 version, and it's something that we are looking to do as a junior version eventually.
Okay, because I would love that, and I got to be honest with you, that would be awesome for kids on the spectrum too, because they work on categories when they're learning language, and so if there was a colorful game to go along with that, you'd have some takers.
You know something? Just there's one that we do. It's called Flipping Out. That is for ages 10 and up, and it can be played by anyone. My girls can get involved in this game. It's more of a team game, and that's the game where you get a category, and instead of naming 5, you have to flip over letter chips. So you've got every letter of the alphabet represented on little circle pogs, and say the category is produce, and I say bananas. So now I flip over B. B's out. Then you may say oranges. Now O's out. So you do the same sort of category and listing, and you eliminate the letter as you go. So that's called Flipping Out, and that one certainly fits that criteria.
That's fabulous. So again, if people want to know more about Korner'd and Flipping Out and some of the other games that you have, they can go to endlessgames.com.
That's right.
And you're also on
endlessgames.com, and we're on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and all those great social media sites as well.
Fabulous. Well, we have to have you back on before the holidays to feature. If you think of like 5 different games that you want to come on and feature, we'd love to have you on. We do a lot of toys during the holiday season.
That sounds great. I'll try to name 5 things we can do with you guys.
Okay, that'll be cool. Great tie-in. Brian, thank you so much for what you do. And we also want to mention, too, that on the box, when they get Korner'd, they will see that you are a proud supporter of Autism Speaks. And
absolutely. And we do donate a portion of every Korner'd game sold back to Autism Speaks.
Fabulous.
Research.
Love that. Thank you so much. Clever stuff. Love your job. Must be a fun job.
It's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
You take care.
All righty, you too.
Bye-bye. So Brian Turtle from Endless Games, I'm telling you, this was a wildly fun game. And I brought it into the studio this week to be able to show it a couple of times on the show. And my son asked, he said, where's the Korner'd game? I want to play Korner'd. So you know that's good, because I have a child who, if anything aside from Minecraft, it's got to be incredible, right? Korner'd, great game. I personally recommend. We're going to take a break and come back with more of the show after these messages. Stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of May, I thought it'd be really neat if we made our own bird feeders. What's cool about it is once it's done and it's hung in your front yard, backyard, balcony, or whatever outdoor area that you have, your kids will be able to observe the bird feeder and tap when they see birds coming over and feeding from it, like, oh my gosh, oh, so exciting. Do you see that? Sorry, I got distracted. I'm just so excited about all the different birds I've been seeing now that I have a bird feeder hanging outside. Anywho, let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are 2.5 cups of birdseed, half a cup of boiling water, 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, a spatula, twine, scissors, wax paper, and cookie cutters. Alright, now that I got your materials, it's super easy. I have my boiling hot half cup of water, and I'm going to take my 2 packets of unflavored gelatin, and I'm going to pour them in and stir it. The reason I pour it in the water first all by itself is to make sure that the gelatin dilutes really well, and I can stir it up real nicely. Now that it's been all stirred together, I'm going to take this liquid and pour it into the birdseed, making sure to scrape up all the gelatin that we diluted. Now I'm just going to stir it all up. Okay, now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to take my wax paper and put it on my table just so I don't make a mess. And then I'm going to take my cookie cutter and lay it down. I'm also going to take a piece of string and cut it, about 6 inches long. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the cookie cutter halfway full with our birdseed mixture. And I'm going to take my string, fold it in half, I'm going to place it in the center. This way you can hang this up once it's done and dry. Okay, now that it's full, I'm just gonna pack it in. So now that this is all compacted, it's gonna take about 6 hours for the gelatin to get completely hard. If you take it out too soon, the whole thing's gonna fall apart. So let's wait a little bit and I'll see you guys in a few moments. All right, it's been 6 hours now, so let's see if this little guy worked out. So I'm just gonna pull him up and pop him out, okay? And here's my finished bird feeder. All you have to do now is hang it outside and wait for all the great things you're gonna see. Like, ooh, I see another bird. This is so exciting. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the activity and keep me up to date with all the different birds that you and your child see outside your property. Until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We promised you some good news to come down the pike a little bit later on the show. I want to give you the first of those. That yesterday we saw that autism insurance, the mandate that was up for a vote in Minnesota, has passed the state legislature, and is now going to go to the governor to be signed into law. The expectation is that the governor will sign it, and we certainly hope that that's true, and we'll keep you posted on that. It's Governor Mark Dayton in Minnesota who will be signing that bill. Now, here's the thing about, we're seeing as, this is the 33rd state, by the way, that has now signed an insurance mandate. We were so encouraged in the beginning as these mandates happened. We all understood, or should have understood, because the information was there and freely available, that it wouldn't mean that everybody in the state was covered, that there are loopholes that still need to be closed, but it's a beginning. And so I love when people minimize, and I've got a story here in front of me when they're talking about, it says, advocates for children with autism are celebrating the passage of an insurance mandate that will require some, but not most, Minnesota health plans to cover an intensive form of therapy that can cost $100,000 a year. So, right in the opener, we get, it's going to cover some, but not most of them. Well, unfortunately, I'm afraid that that's true, that it won't cover the majority, but it still says that it's going to cover about 750,000 Minnesotans. That's pretty incredible. And when you stop and think about it, we don't want to minimize that, right? I also don't want to minimize that leaves a great portion of children still in Minnesota who still will not be able to reap the benefits of that with insurance. But that just gives us the next step, the next rung in the ladder that we need to attack. But I do think that it's remarkable. I want to congratulate Minnesota on making that happen. I certainly want to encourage everyone to be talking to Governor Mark Dayton and making sure it is the expectation that he will sign that into law. Again, it's the 33rd state. And we want to make sure that we get to all 50, but more importantly than that is that we want a federal mandate so that no state can opt out. We're seeing that as the quote-unquote Obamacare is getting ready to take effect, there are a couple of states that currently have mandates that are considering not getting an approved plan, which will leave that mandate hanging in the wind. It will cost the states a great deal of money. It will be a punishment upon them if they don't get a plan. And, that doesn't make sense to any of us, but a lot of people are suggesting that that's the first step towards them being able to justify not having the mandate because it will cost them so much money. That's backward thinking, saying we're not going to participate so we'll get fined and that it will be too expensive for us to do. I want to encourage all of you to be checking out what's happening in your state by going to autismvotes.org. There used to be a colorful map that would say, this is what's happening here and there. You can still click on a state on that map that's there when you go to autismvotes.org. But if you have to scroll down to be able to see individual states what the standing is. I think it's really important to stay up to date with what's going on in your state. Even if you already have a mandate and you're feeling like things are fine, make sure that your state is not one of those that has been dragging their feet about choosing a health care plan, because that could potentially put your mandate in jeopardy. And we want to congratulate Minnesota and continue on, and let's see if we can't make it 34 in the coming days. It's incredible. And of course, I also urge you, when you go to autismvotes.org, you'll be asked to sign a petition that is going to the president asking for a federal mandate. We need it. We need it, and I don't know what it's going to take to make that happen, but I can assure you that 1 million signatures would not go unnoticed, and yet we do not have 1 million signatures yet. There are over 1 million children in the United States without, let's say, 1 million children in the United States on the autism spectrum who could be benefiting from that legislation, and each one of them had 2 parents at one point and at least 4 grandparents at one point if everybody's still living. So there should be at least 6 million signatures on that petition, and there aren't. If your signature is not on there, I want to urge you to please do that today. autismvotes.org. Let's get this done for everyone. Okay, we are going to go to the A word. This is the ongoing documentary that's being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders following a little boy, Jack Riley, as he begins his early intensive behavioral intervention. This is the best of all possible worlds, that this little boy's family was able to get funding so that they could have the best ABA program in their home. And we see that it's not an easy thing, right? Nobody says once you get the funding that it's an easy thing. It's still very hard on this very young family. They've got a new baby that just came, so Jack Riley's got a baby sister. And some days are better than others, but the thing is, at this point we're watching the series, he's about 1 year into his therapy, and this little boy is talking. He's making eye contact. He's interested in the world around him, and he is learning. So take a look. This is the A word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack.
Jack Riley.
He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Hi, Jessica. Jessica's daddy. That's right. Who's this? Who's this? Bobby. And who's that? Daddy.
Who's that?
Over there. Who's that?
Good. And I totally think he's just aware of a lot of things now. People's names. How is the behavior team going with the inflexibilities?
He's still a big control guy. He still wants it the way he wants it.
In sessions, he was very, he'd get very upset.
And he gets upset fast, like for reasons that didn't used to upset him. He gets upset fast, and then once he's upset, everything upsets him.
Were they really long?
But it was a good half hour, the whole tantrum, which is long for him. Really long.
Yeah.
And he would just get so upset.
Yeah, everyone tells us, it's not unexpected. He's 3 and blah, 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 but
so we get it, we know it.
Still, it's harsh. Yeah, he's 3, but he's our 3-year-old.
Tell me a vehicle.
Good
job. Tell me another vehicle.
Airplane.
Airplane is a vehicle. Yay. Okay, 2 more. Okay. Tell me a food.
Food.
Pancake is a food.
Yeah.
Tell me another food. Tell me another one.
Food.
Cereal bar is a food. Yeah.
But he's a zebra. Hey, Jack Riley.
Yes.
Good job. Tell me an animal.
What's animal?
What's that?
Tell me one more time. What's the animal?
What's animal?
Rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros. Oh, okay, it's an animal. Tell me another animal. I know. Tell me another one. Oh, here are your shoes. What animal is that?
Froggy.
Froggy is a what? No, frog is a
Arrow.
Good. So tell me another animal.
Rhinoceros is an animal.
Rhinoceros is an animal, and tell me another one.
More pancake.
No, look at me. No, no, look at me. There you go. Thank you. Pancakes are not animals, silly.
There's a clue from it.
More pancake.
Yeah, and I don't mind if he looks around to like get clues, get hints. That's totally fine. Yes, I've been running sessions a little bit more like that lately, just because his behaviors have been really high. Just like if we're jumping on the bed or dancing, I'll stop for a minute and ask him like 3 or 4 questions, and then we'll just keep dancing or whatever we're doing. Let me probe. There's some stuff around there.
What are you going to be probing?
actions. So I just want to see if he already knows it, then I won't even bother introducing it. Give me kissing. Oh, good. What are the kids doing?
He's kissing.
Oh, they're kissing. Can you show me kissing? Oh, good job. Give me cleaning. Okay, good. What's the girl doing?
She's cleaning.
She's cleaning. Good job.
Water.
Okay, one more. Can I have it? One more. Give me crying. What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
What's she doing? What's the baby doing?
She's baby.
She's wah. She's crying.
She's crying.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll do crying.
He's kissing.
He's kissing. What about this one? What's she doing there?
She's cooking.
Oh, she's cooking. Okay. And what's this one? What's she doing?
She's crying.
Oh, okay. So basically, she knows all of them. All right, cool. All right. What are they doing?
She's dirty.
They're what?
There's cooking.
Oh, they're cooking. Good job.
What's that cooking? What's that cooking?
Mom is cooking?
What's that cooking?
Lots of cooking? Oh, okay, cool. All right, all done. Thank you. Welcome back. That was the A Word. This is a series that there are over 2 years of episodes that if you go on their YouTube channel, you can watch from the beginning, from when he was having his first intake and they were waiting for services to start, to watching him getting ready to go off to school. So really kind of amazing, and everything in between, including the toileting, which is a really an amazing thing to be able to document. A couple of things that I want to talk about. We were just talking with Brian Turtle from Endless Games about, learning categories. And here we see that Jack Riley has been learning categories. In particular, we know he's learned the food category and he's learned the vehicle category. This was a fascinating time when they were doing this work with my son, because a lot of you have written in and said, well, my child is learning labeling at school, how to label an item, and then they know what a car is, and if you point to an apple, they can say that it's an apple, but how do we get from there to conversation? And we were talking about that a little bit with Dr. Doreen Grampachet yesterday, and she said the short answer is go on skills, and, it'll show you all the steps, because there are so many different steps. And I completely concur with that. But, one of the things that they did was first they taught labels, and then from there they taught categories, and then from there you learn on to, you go on to learn functions of things and characteristics of things, and so that it builds and builds and builds, so they don't get this two-dimensional idea of an apple, that an apple is red and that it's always round and it only looks like this and it has one leaf on it, that they get a really, you talk about 360-degree perspective of apple and all the different things that apples can be in a juice, and apples can be green, and apples can be little, and apples can be big, and there can be this kind of apple and another kind of apple. It could be a crab apple, or, that an Asian pear, is that really an apple? Getting that really full understanding of all kinds of things. So you see in there where they're listing off and saying, tell me a vehicle. And in this case, she wants to know 3. We were just talking with Brian Turtle about name 5. Well, we do this with our kids to help them to understand that a vehicle isn't just one thing. That he was saying, a vehicle is an airplane, and a vehicle is a car, and a vehicle is a truck. And then she went on to food, name a food and name an animal.
So this is really important work, and you can do this like she's doing it, or you could do it in a game. It really is phenomenal. I also wanted you to notice that she's using something that they refer to as frames. So as she's building a sentence with him, because when kids start out and they're learning just the label, right, and they learn, pen, and also I wanted you to notice that she does it receptively and then she does it expressively, all part of the same lesson, not separate. So she says, give me cooking. So that's the receptive, that she's teaching him how to understand that she's saying cooking. He scans the pictures and he picks up cooking and puts it in her hand. So he understands the receptive label for the action of cooking. And then she says, what are they doing? And he has to say, they're cooking. That's the expressive side of it. And she does them back to back. Very beneficial to do that way. You can do them separately, but I think you teach that much faster when you're doing them both back to back. So we've been working on labels and how do we make the jump from labels to conversation, and you work on categories and features and all those other things, but you're also building frames so that when you say to a child, she says, at one point, she says, tell me an animal. And he says, froggy, right? And she says, great. And she says, a froggy is, she just doesn't let it go at froggy of him just leaving. She says, a froggy is, and she's making a frame for the sentence and leaving part of it blank. So he says, froggy is an animal. This is how we build sentences and add to their repertoire. It's like pulling taffy. We're going to make it longer and longer and longer. And we can do this in all different kinds of ways. And I know when we started doing that with my son and prompting him in that way by giving him all a part of the sentence, but having him fill in, it felt awkward. It felt really, really awkward. And I remember one parent going, oh, is that how you're teaching him how to speak? Helpful parent of neurotypical children, right? And meaning well, right? But it's just one of those things that you want to go, really? You want to comment on that? Why? But in any case, I got to thinking about it because I got a little defensive about it. And I thought, but this is how we learn stuff. If I was going to teach you a new song and you were going to listen to it on the radio and you were going to listen to it over and over and over again, you would build it piece by piece and just, this section, every time you got an opportunity, you'd add a little bit more to it. That's how we all learn. So suspend your judgment about the method in which you're teaching. If it works and it works well, yeah, it does. So why not use it? Really important to give them the part of the sentence and have them fill in the blank. When we teach the alphabet and teach how to sing the alphabet end to end, you can just sit there and sing the whole alphabet over and over and over. But if your child doesn't learn it, what are you going to keep doing that? And I know some people who will, right? But instead of being frustrated with that, one of the things that we do is that we'll, give them as many opportunities. So we are going to sing it over and over and over again. We're going to give them something besides singing, give them a visual. And we might start and go in segments and go A, B, C and do that over and over and over again. But then eventually we'll leave something out. We'll go A, B, right? And wait for them to fill in the C and then reward them. Yay! Now we've got some buy-in and then we go on, we go A, B, C and let them do the D, right? So we can do this with sentences. We can do this with songs. We do this all the time in life. There's nothing aberrant about that kind of teaching. I can still hear that. That's how you're teaching him how to talk? What do you care? How did you teach your child to walk and talk? It just happened for you. You lucky so-and-so, leave me alone. Right? But ask me how I really feel. In any case, A Word, amazing, amazing series. Check out their YouTube page. Skip around, search topics, but you'll find it very interesting, educational, and uplifting, and honest. You'll see the parents sometimes struggling, going, man, this is hard. This is not fun. Because sometimes it isn't. And that's the truth of it. But other times it's a celebration. And that's a lovely thing. Okay, we're going to take a break and come back and talk about another story in the news just yesterday that was very exciting and maybe a turn for the way things should be. Stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grampichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
It just has some gases.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christy and Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. We like to feature stories in the news and keep us all abreast of what's happening, especially when it's something that's uplifting. So this comes to us from BBC News, their business report, that a German software company known as SAP, I believe they call it, says it hopes to recruit hundreds of people with autism, saying that they have a unique talent for information technology. Now, we have heard other people say this before, that we're planning to have Joey Travolta in the studio next week. He is the head of Inclusion Films. I know I go on about them a lot because I just believe in what he's doing. And he has said before, I don't know why anybody would want to hire somebody who wasn't on the spectrum. But, they're really wonderful, intelligent, diligent, caring employees. And, why you wouldn't want that, I don't know. And apparently some other people are buying a vowel and concerns with this as well. So SAP has said that by 2020 that they want 1% of its global workforce of 65,000 employees to be people with autism. The executive, Luisa Delgado from the company, said that innovation comes from the edges and that people with autism have a tendency to be very highly intelligent and have a keen attention to detail. She said, quote, only by employing people who think differently and spark innovation will SAP be prepared to handle the challenges of the 21st century. Okay. How much do we love her? They have already hired 6 people with autism at their office in Bangalore, India, and they work there as software testers. The firm said its productivity had increased as a result of their efforts, and it now plans to take on more such staff in other countries. We have to absolutely love this. And so it's their drive to begin to hire that many people is in partnership with an organization called Specialistern. It's a Danish social organization that helps people with autism find work with information technology companies. So the name of that is Specialistern with an E on the end. So if you have a teenager or someone who is really into technology and perhaps they're looking for that kind of job, there is a Danish social organization that specializes in hooking those individuals up with those technology jobs. Yeah, how much do we love this? Kudos to everyone involved with this. I think we're going to see more companies starting to get it. Of course, we have heard of other companies that have a higher rate. A lot of companies in Silicon Valley have a higher rate of people on the autism spectrum and their children being on the autism spectrum. So this isn't necessarily new, but it isn't something that gets talked about in the news or that a company comes out and says, no, we're specifically looking for people on the spectrum. I have to say, I kind of love it. We also featured on the show the other day about the story about the enterprising, very wealthy moms in Florida that are deciding to hire individuals with disabilities to go with them to serve as tour guides to go to Disneyland because there is a special guest pass that Disney makes available for guests who have difficulties that often, not always, makes the line a little bit shorter. And I was so interested. We talked about that. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson was here, and we talked about that and said, we don't see a thing wrong with that. They pay $135 an hour for an individual with some sort of challenge to go with them, to ride on rides with them at Disneyland. I think that's appropriate. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think that's great. I think there's nothing under the sun wrong with that. And then my son and I, on Sundays, we love to listen to NPR and listen to the program Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. We're big fans of that. We always listen to it in the car on the way home from the farmer's market on Sunday. And this week, of course, every week they feature, here are 3 news stories, and can you pick out which one is the true story? And in amongst their stories, of course, was the story about the wealthy moms hiring individuals with disabilities to go to Disneyland with them. And the person guessed wrong, picked something else, and because their comment was, please tell me, and in fact, I think it was Alice Cooper was the guest who said, please tell me that, please tell me that deplorable thing could not possibly be true. And of course, then the whole audience erupted in a of horror when they realized that, no, it was the one that the story about Disneyland. And everybody was saying, well, that's just terrible. That is just inexcusable. That's just horrible. And sorry, I disagree. I think anytime that when we have an unemployment rate of higher than 90% for individuals on the spectrum, and if we can use their talents and their abilities to be put to the best, then I don't see a thing wrong with that under the sun. And, please write in if you feel differently. I welcome other opinions, but that's where I'm at. $135 an hour, it's nice work. And, to go, and there are responsibilities, and there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Okay, we're going to take a break and come back and look at some of your opinions on Facebook about our question of the day. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides programs to educate students, parents, and professionals proven techniques using applied behavior analysis. Access online video lessons with IBT eLearning. Get one-on-one personalized instruction with IBT face-to-face training. Acquire professional guidance with IBT BCBA supervision. Develop professional growth with IBT continuing education courses. Get access to IBT services today. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
My computer did not want to cooperate. No, here we are. Now we're getting there. So I want to take a look at what you guys have written in on Facebook. So excuse me 1 second. I have to type. It just didn't want to do it during the break. Okay. We asked you guys today, and we haven't had a chance to drop in and look at your answers to the questions all this week. So we're going to talk a little bit about social skills and what you guys think your strengths are for social skills, what you think your weaknesses are for social skills, and what the biggest challenge has been socially. So for today's question, it was, what's the biggest challenge socially? Somebody wrote in and said, people not understanding that I make it look easy, but it is so hard. I can have 1 million friends, but still feel so alone. That my smile is a must. I am in pain, but I can't walk around with a frown. And, you know, I thank you so much for writing in and saying that. I had recently read a thing about autism burnout that somebody had written, who is an adult who's on the spectrum, and said, does anybody else ever suffer from this? That I know what I need to do to, quote unquote, fit in. I know what I need to do to be able to follow the rules of society, and I can do that on a daily basis, but then sometimes I go home and I just need to be able to be myself completely and behave how I want to behave and not have these social constraints. And I want to say a couple of things about that. First of all, thank you for reminding us that that is what's happening. And I don't think that all of us are necessarily cognizant of that on a regular basis, that it is exhausting to have to follow the social rules, especially, but not only, when you are on the autism spectrum. Because I have to say that I went around and I talked to a bunch of different people and said, do you feel this way too? And I asked people who were on the spectrum and I asked people who weren't on the spectrum. And do you know what was remarkable about it was that everybody said to some degree they experience that. I know people that are very gregarious and very social, and they love to be around social people, but they still need downtime. People love to go to a movie to be able to sit in the dark and appreciate something without having to be engaged in social activity. I've always said, when we get together to do something with somebody, and my husband and he, as a group of friends, they love to go to movies, and I don't get to see these people very often, and I always say, really, we're going to go to a movie? I haven't had a conversation with this person and we're going to go to a movie. But we all like to take a break from the social thing. I just think that the degree to which it's a necessity is different for everyone. And in particular, from the friends that I spoke to who are on the spectrum, maybe the degree of it was much more critical. But I think we could all relate to it and say, my goodness, there are just some days. I have a very good friend who, very, very social human being, and has a very social job, and has opportunity to go to the Oscars on a regular basis. And one year he went to all the parties at the Oscars, and he talked about how fabulous that was. And the following year I said, are you going to the parties this year? And he said, no, because every once in a while I like to just sit at home in my underwear and eat a bowl of spaghetti while I'm watching the Oscars without anybody there to comment. Right? And I think we can all understand and appreciate that we have a public self and we have a private self, and that sometimes being constantly with the public self is exhausting. Now imagine amping that up, and I'm told by my friends on the spectrum that that's what it can be like sometimes. So I really appreciate that you writing in and saying that, the people don't understand that I make it look easy, but it isn't. And I guess my question for you is, does that ever occur to you that maybe you're not the only one who's feeling that way? That it's very possible that the people you're wishing understand, maybe they already feel that way a little bit themselves, and that might be the way to key in and say, imagine feeling how you feel about that and multiply it by maybe 100. Just something to think about. Another person who wrote in and said that their biggest challenge, socially right now is him keeping his hands to himself. He touches everything. He also will lean on things, sit on the middle of the floor in the store. Yes, I have this child. I was just saying to Emily during the last break that my child just had another growth spurt and that he constantly complains. She said, is he in pain? Because it hurts when your bones grow that fast. And I said, he's constantly in pain, and he talks about how his legs hurt and he wants to sit down. This is a child who will run a mile without stopping, and he can, but to stand still in a grocery store, he's like, oh, I just don't want to stand. And he'll lean against the frozen food section. I'll turn around and he's sitting in the bacon. Not the behavior that you want in a grocery store. And when he was very little, he would just lay down in the middle of the store and say, I'm tired. And yet if we were on a playground, he could run endlessly, right? So I do think that there's an element of boredom. But also when you're standing still, if you're in pain, this is something that I've noticed lately in my later years having arthritis, is that if I'm in motion, my joints don't hurt. But if I have to stand still for a long time, I feel it. And I don't know whether it's because my brain is occupied with other issues when I'm moving, something to think about. But yeah, it's really hard when kids need constant sensory. And I have one of those kids, but one of the things that we taught him, because he would lean on me or he would lean on something else and again lay on the floor. And what I noticed was that he needed to be touched. He needed that sensory diet that he was getting at school on a regular basis. So in later years, as he went to go from second grade to third grade, what we did was we taught him how to hug himself. He was constantly wanting a hug. He would hug the other children. He would hug the teacher. So we taught him how to apply the pressure that we would do for him when he was very little that would make it so that he would calm down and be centered enough to learn something. We taught him how to do that for himself, that he could be standing and talking to a friend and squeezing his elbow, and that made it less likely. Does he still lean on things? Yes, but not as much. And is he still walking around hugging everybody? Not as much. We also instilled the rule that he could not hug anyone without first giving their permission. And that slowed things down a little bit. Something to think about. Another person who wrote in and said, sometimes my son yells when we are in public. If he is ready to leave a place and we are not, he will get really loud. He has actually lifted up one side of a table, not very high, and let it fall back down to the floor real hard. At times it can be very hard to be out with him because he seems to be in control of the situation with his outbursts. We never know if it will be a great outing, and there are many, or if it will be awful and short. That is tough. It is tough. But yesterday we had Dr. Doreen Grampachet on the show, and she was talking about, the question was, what do you do if the child is compulsive about having to go into the bathroom every single establishment that you go in, and if she doesn't, she yells. And it really opened my mind because Dr. Grampachet said you have to check yourself and not change your behavior because you're afraid of what your child will do. And I stopped her and I said, oh my goodness, because I know I did that when my child was younger. I promise you that I did that. And I've really been thinking for the last 24 hours about if I still do that. And I will be honest with you, I really don't think that I do anymore. But part of the reason why we got to the point where I don't have to worry about his behavior is because I had good therapists who helped me to work through those situations. We talked about that a little bit on the show yesterday, that they strategized with me and in some cases went with me to events, and sometimes nothing would happen, right? And we made sure that we heaped on the praise when nothing happened. But if something did happen, either I would take notes on it and deal with it as best as I could until I could go back to them, and then they could strategize and say, okay, here's what you want to be mindful of in these situations. Or they were there and helped me. They didn't take over, but they would be the voice in my ear and stand very close to me and say, now you're going to say this, and now you're going to do this, and now you're going to look over here, and you're going to talk to me, and you're not going to pay attention to this. Because it really depends depends on what the function of the behavior is, which intervention works, but I would encourage you to get help before it gets worse, because, you know, having a difficult 3-year-old and going on outings is a much different thing than having a difficult 14-year-old. My son now comes up to my nose, and I think to myself all the time, what if we had not gotten intervention and we were dealing with the behavior that we were dealing with when he was 3? And I promise you that was a part of my thought process at the time. I'm somebody who can be very slow to move on some things, but I moved quickly to get ABA because all I could think was, it's not going to be long and he's going to be bigger than me, and I don't want him taken away or have to go away from me because I couldn't get this under control now. And I knew I had a window that I could get it under control. So I don't know how old your child is, but I would encourage you to get some help and support now. And they're probably going to want to set up some circumstances where you're out at an outing that isn't important, that if you have to leave immediately, you do. But it sounds like to me that, you know, you say that if he's ready to leave a place, then, you know, he's going to do whatever it takes for you to leave, which will be difficult because one of the things that they might tell you to do is you're not going to leave, that he's going to do whatever he's going to do and you're not going to leave. And that you'll move things out of the way so he can't hurt himself or hurt other people, but and that you're not going to pay attention to it, and that he's going to have his behavior and he's going to have a full-on meltdown. But if a child has a full-on meltdown and it's with mindfully that you've already done your work and you know what the function of the behavior is and it's what's recommended, that you're not going to change what you're doing because they're doing it for the reason of getting you to change what you're doing. So if all those circumstances are on board, what will happen is the child will throw the mother of all meltdowns and exhaust themselves and then realize, okay, this isn't working. I got to try something else. And when they get to that moment, oh, it's crazy good, because suddenly kids will make incredible eye contact sometimes. Sometimes they'll come out with the craziest of sentences that they've never done before because their whole being is about getting something done. And if this is 100% sure that this isn't going to work, they'll pull other things out of their shopping cart and say, let me try this. Another person writes in, the most difficult social thing is sharing. Oh, that's a toughie. But, you know, I got to say, games, good thing for teaching those. Someone else's challenges come with a non-effort and no patience. Bad combo. You work with anyone long enough, the rewards outweigh the challenges. Yeah, it's true. But apathy is it's true. Apathy is much harder to deal with, and a lack of patience is much harder to deal with than actually meltdowns. There's a certain amount of energy that goes into a meltdown, and it seems like in the moment, oh, this is the worst of all possible things. But the truth of the matter is that when a child's putting that much energy into throwing a fit, it's because they really, really want something. It's much harder to work with a kid who doesn't care and gets frustrated easily. But there are things that can be worked on, and you just have to keep plugging away until you find what is motivating to them. Somebody else is keeping friends and stimming. The keeping friends, boy, really hard thing. The stimming, we've heard from a lot of experts talking about the fact that giving them an opportunity in which to do it where it's socially acceptable, changing how they're stimming to something that's socially appropriate, and giving them confines and saying, you know, you can stim during this time, but this time it's not appropriate. It's just like we teach, and quite honestly, we put it in this context for my son because, you know, it's perfectly okay to take your pants and your underwear off in the bathroom. Perfectly okay. But it's perfectly not okay to do that in the middle of the playground. And so it's okay. My son makes high-pitched noises, and we've said to him, it's perfectly okay for you to do that when you're playing a video game by yourself, within reason, right? It's not okay to do it while you're taking a test at school. You just can't. And really making it like a faucet that he can turn on and off, and starting with small increments and diversions, and rewarding when he was able to do it in small increments so that we could get to the point where we could say, you just can't do that here. You just can't, not allowed. Somebody else wrote in and said, when my son was younger, it was everything. Now he's 17. Life is wonderful socially. My man boy makes such positive impact on all he touches. What a wonderful thing. Bless you for writing that in, because we love hearing these stories of success. Well, if you've got a little one, I mean, here she was, and she had a little one who wasn't getting it done, but they plugged away, and now he's 17 and it's good. Absolutely love it. All right, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about skills and all the different ways that you can use skills. So stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals. Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior. With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented. You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back. We had somebody who wrote in, and I love this. I always love discourse. Somebody wrote in and said, as far as the Disneyland story, I agree with you. It's great for the person with special needs. It's a win-win for them. It's a job, and they get to go to Disneyland. What I don't agree with is the reason some of these people are doing it. If they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, that's great. If they're doing it to exploit special needs and to just cheat the system, then I don't agree with it. I respect your opinion, though, Shannon, and I totally respect your opinion, and that puts it in a different light for me, because I do think that intention is really important. Intention is really, really, really super important. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think that these women, that their intention is to create a job for an individual who has special needs at all. I think you're absolutely right that their intention is to exploit the system so that they get what they want. And I think that is deplorable. I will say that. The fact that it ends up being a plus for somebody with a disability is what I'm choosing to focus on, because unfortunately, and maybe this is just where my head is at lately. Unfortunately, I think people's intentions. We don't always get to know what they are, and they aren't always on the up and up. But if it ends up being a positive, of course, where my head goes, because I always go to movie references. I remember the first time I saw Schindler's List. And then, you know, throughout the movie, you know, he's being asked to help, and I don't think he gets it. My take on the movie, anyway, was that he did not understand the gravity of the situation and that what his help was doing. I don't think he really fully got it. I don't think his intentions were really in the right place, but he was still doing something that ended up being a positive. And then, of course, there's that moment when he does get it, when they're standing there by the train and he sees the faces of the people that he saved, and he breaks down in tears and says, "Oh my goodness, I didn't understand. We could have saved so many more. We could have done so much more." And then he understands. So I think that sometimes people's intentions, I'm going to guess that these women who have more money than they have anything else have this thought that they're going to go off to Disneyland and they're going to cheat the line. And then you spend the day with somebody whose ability to be able to do things at sometimes is hampered in some way. That's what the pass is for. I'm just going to guess that they leave that park a little bit wiser and a little bit more grateful for what they have, and maybe a little bit more educated. I hope, because I'm for sure that their intentions are not good. But I'm not even sure that that's necessarily, you know, maybe it educates these ladies. I'm gonna hope for that. But I totally respect your opinion, and I agree with you that I have an issue with that as well. So thank you for bringing that added point to it. Okay, now one of the things that we've been talking about a lot, you guys know I talk about skills because I'm kind of a big fan of skills. And I from time to time we'll talk about one element of it. And we had Dr. Granpeche on yesterday, and a lot of times where people were writing in and saying, "I don't know what to do about this. I don't know how to teach this. How do you teach that? How do you do this? How am I going to deal with this behavior?" And we always say on the show that she and none of the experts that are here can give child-specific advice. It's a disservice to our kids. But the reality is that a lot of you are in places where you don't have access to a BCBA, either because of funding or there literally just isn't a BCBA near you. You know, and you can Skype with a BCBA, but, you know, maybe that isn't what's really feasible for you. And so it kept coming up in conversation that she would bring up skills, and I know I bring up skills often here on the show. And I bring up the fact that there are so many different ways that you can use it. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes today as we're finishing out the show to talk about some of the different features a little bit in detail and the reason why I'm such a big fan about it. And I want to start with just a short preface about why skills came into being. Because CARD has been using a curriculum that has been proven to be effective with thousands of children for over 20 years. I think it's 22 years now that CARD has been providing services to kids on the autism spectrum. And CARD is the biggest organization in the world that provides ABA. They do it in more places with a higher number of children. They're not the only organization in the world that does ABA, and they're certainly not the only organization that has a curriculum for helping kids, but you put the two things together that they've been doing it longer and they're the biggest, and it really, I can tell you as a parent what I saw in my home, and you can look at the research on it, but they have a curriculum that's powerful. I don't know how else to say it. It's powerful. And it's comprehensive. You know, everything under the sun that every skill that you could want to teach to a child on the autism spectrum, they've taught it. So I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel. If somebody has already done the legwork on this and worked with 24 children and saw that, okay, when we did this with, I'm an ex-teacher, and I know that the first time you teach a class in something isn't going to be the most effective time you teach it, right? Because after the first time you go, oh, if I had known this, then I would have taught this a different way. And the next time you teach the class, you tweak it and you change it a little bit. And the third time you teach the class, you're cooking with gas, right? And then you get some different students that come in that inform you, right? So now the fourth time you teach it, you're really blossoming on this subject. So I love the idea of having my son be working with people who are cutting edge and constantly doing research, and they do, to figure out what the most effective way of doing it is, but they're applying all of their knowledge and all the knowledge that they've learned along the way. So here, Korner'd had this brilliant curriculum, and they knew that no matter how many therapists they hired, there was no way that they were going to be able to get that information out to everybody around the world. And so Skills was born. It's an online tool to be able to utilize that curriculum. But as they were putting the curriculum in, they added a bunch of other functionality that made sense. So it is now this huge thing. And I said yesterday that sometimes people, because it's so huge, you don't necessarily take advantage of all that's there, and that's okay. There are people who have got their membership, their subscription to Skills simply so that they can take the assessment and know where their child is. And by the way, the assessment, there's been research on the assessment to show that it's accurate, that they did a study where they had therapists assessing the child and the parents taking the Skills assessment to see if they came out to be accurate and concurred with each other, and in fact they did. So that research is available. So you can trust, because I know a lot of times as parents we fill things out and we go, oh, I'm not sure that I'm the person that should be the person filling this out. I don't know how accurate I'm being, and blah, blah. It's okay, because they've seen extensively that what you put the assessment, if you answer the assessment as true as possible, it's exactly what you would get if, you had a trained eye looking as well, because the answers are specific enough, if that helps you. So some people just get it for the assessment, because then you get a lovely picture graph of where your child's skills are in so many different areas, how far behind they are for their age level, and what lessons they need to learn in order to get caught up with their age level, because your child might be 4 but have the skill level of a 2-year-old. And can I tell you that when my child was first diagnosed, I would hear that over and over and over again. In a meeting, they would say, well, in terms of this skill, your child is testing at like a year and a half. He's at 18 months when he should be at 3.5. And so I would hear that, right? And then I would hear the next one, at this one he's at 2.5. Oh, that's great, a little bit higher. But until I took the assessment and could see it all together, and then you see, my child's area of strengths are right here. It's where his bar graph is the high. And here's the hole. Here's the place where we really got to put some attention on this. It just makes it that much easier. And you can do that. The assessment is exhaustive. It will take you a long time to do it. It isn't something that you can just sit down and do in a weekend. And I had to do it in little intervals so that I was making sure that I was being accurate, because you'll get tired. And it will bring up emotions where you'll get angry. Just warning you. But I did it. I actually had to do it twice, because I did it in the beta and then I did it later on. It was beneficial time spent. Really, I felt it was an investment in my child, and it has paid off in so many different ways. So some people just do it for the assessment. Now other people are coming in and they're saying, I want to do this for the lessons. I want to start teaching my child today. What do you mean I got to take an assessment that's going to take me a month to do because I'm working full time and taking care of my child? For people who just want to do the lessons, you don't have to go in and take the exhaustive assessment in order to start. It has all the lessons, but they're all in different categories, and they're in different domains and at different skill levels, and they're all coded so that you can, use it in lots of different ways. But if you say, okay, that's great, but I want to be able to teach my child to count to 100, or I want to be able to teach my child empathy, or I want to be able to do toilet training. Where is that? And I can't, which domain is that in? Don't make me think. It's perfectly okay. There is a feature that you can just put in a keyword. So you go and you type in toileting, and it's going to give you all the lessons that have to do with toileting. If you want to teach a child count to 100, you would type in and put counting, and it will give you all the lessons that have to do with counting. And the reason why it gives you all the lessons is because you're going to want to pick, what you do is you read through the lessons and say, oh, okay, this is where we're at. You could do that through the assessment and it would eliminate the ones you don't need, or you can very quickly say, okay, here are where the lessons are. And this one is, my child already knows how to urinate in the toilet, but I need to do the number 2 in the toilet. And so you skip all the ones about voiding and you go to the ones about having a bowel movement. And you customize it for yourself. So lots of different ways to search it. For some people, I encourage them to go in and prioritize for yourself. Say, okay, what's most important to me? Where do I feel like my child is most behind? You may not be 100% accurate, but just gut. Where do you feel, oh, my child is most behind in social skills? Great. So you go into the assessment, you click there's a drop-down menu that says all the different domains, and there's one for social skills. Great. Go into that one. And then once you go into that one, you'll see a list of areas in the assessment. Well, that matches perfectly with a list of lessons. And you go through and you see all those things, and you see eye contact is on that list. And you see social language skills like greetings and salutations, and you look and go, okay, this is definitely something, and they're pretty much in order of a progression of easiest, earliest time to start, and hardest, pretty much. So you start at the top, and eye contact is right there. Compliance and eye contact are right there at the top, and you say to yourself, is that a good place for me to start? And if it is, start with that. Just go in and answer the first, and usually it's like between 10 and 20 questions in that area. Answer those, and then take a look at the lessons and start. Don't wait 20 days. Don't feel like you have to do the entire social skills assessment before you start on eye contact, or before you start on whatever the skill is that you want to start on. And I am a fan of looking at your priority list and saying, how much time do I have? And, what do all the things I want to do, I've got 5 hours a week. That's not going to get all of it. So prioritize. Oh, okay, what's most important, or what seems to be showing up on the prerequisites, is eye contact, so I got to prioritize that one. So I'm going to put I put that on my list of must-haves. And then look around and say, okay, what else? But try to have it be a varied program so that there's some fun stuff in there too. Don't underestimate the play skills. I'm starting to talk fast because we're out of time. So those are the lesson portion of it, right? But then attached to the lesson portion are all the IEP goals. So every time you see a lesson, it tells you what the skill is that you're building. And then on that lesson, under the little eye icon, it shows you the IEP goals and benchmarks. That all you have to do is fill in, very specific particulars for the lesson, and you can bring that to your IEP and say, I want this goal included. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because if you've taken the assessment, it's a skill that is appropriate for your child. It's age level appropriate for them. It's not too hard of a lesson, and you've already got it in their language. It makes a huge difference. So there's those components of it. Then on a whole other side of skills is the behavior intervention plan builder. That if your child is engaging in challenging behavior in any way, and they are starting to add in the component to help you to figure out what the function of the behavior is, which blows my mind. But right now, the BIP builder is up and running, and if you already know what the function of the behavior is, and it walks you through stuff. What is the behavior? It has a drop-down menu for all the potential things that it could be, and it also allows you to customize if it isn't there. But then it says, what is the function of the behavior? Is it to get attention? Is it to escape the task? Is it to get access to something? Is it that it is automatically reinforcing? So let's say your child is stimming, and you just need it to stop. And you've had somebody else look at it and they've said it is stimming, it is self-stimulatory, it is automatically reinforcing. So you would go in and you would put whatever the stim behavior is, and you would click off that it was automatic reinforcement. And then it says, okay, here are the different aspects of this. First of all, we're going to have an antecedent modification. And here, for this particular thing, here is the evidence-based choices that you have. And then maybe you have 3 to choose from, and one clearly doesn't work because it doesn't work in the setting you're in, but the other two you have to pick from. And then it says, okay, here are the replacement behaviors that are going to help you with this. Pick which one you want to do that's socially acceptable for this child in this constraint. It's life-changing. Life-changing. You don't have to wait around for the school to come up with a BIP anymore, or to come up with one that isn't evidence-based. You can do it on your own now. I got to tell you, it's a brilliant thing. We're almost out of time, so while I finish up talking, Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us. I'm going to remind you that we are doing a live show tomorrow, but we're only doing 1 hour, getting ready for the big 3-day weekend. So if you tune in tomorrow, it's just for the first hour, and we've got an amazing man who's going to be on with us tomorrow morning who has a Kickstarter program to teach for the ability to make an ebook to teach parents how to get the most out of their iPads. You're going to love him. So that's tomorrow. You won't want to miss that. We're almost out of time. But I want to encourage you, and there are more things that we haven't talked about in terms of skills. I want to encourage you to go try it out. And there's no better time than to try it out right now. And also will encourage you, because right now they're having an amazing sale that it's 20% off, but not 20% off just for this month. It's 20% off for the life of this subscription. So if you join today, you're going to get 20% off for the rest of the time that you have the subscription. It's really worth it. Really, really worth it. I encourage you to do that. Go to skillsforautism.com. We are all out of time. I can't even believe it. But we'll be back tomorrow. And until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.